For a majority of the Eminence in Shadow series, we would often experience the world and story through the eyes of the crazy sociopath Cid Kagenou. That's why it's easy to forget that this world and its people don't revolve around his delusions and suffer from real consequences. Princess Rose Oriana is one such character, having murdered her own father, the king of the Oriana Kingdom, was branded as a traitor, and now she is constantly haunted by her father's death. So with the recent episode 9, we'll be finding out more about Rose's internal conflict along with some other aspects as well, like what Cid is doing in the Oriana Kingdom, and the full introduction of Victoria, also known as number 559. It goes without saying, there will be spoilers for people who haven't watched the episode yet, so here's a spoiler warning just in case. And if you enjoyed this breakdown/cut content video, be sure to leave a like and feel free to subscribe to the channel as well, it helps a lot. Now then, Season 2 Episode 9 is titled The Key and it covers the prologue of the Volume 4 light novel. To start, we see Rose having a recurring nightmare because the guilt of killing her father was still haunting her, and the light novel actually gives a better insight on her emotional trauma as compared to the anime. Basically, she could still remember the feeling of a blade piercing through her father, and her trauma was caused by the fact that she doesn't know whether or not her actions were justified, and that if her father actually approved of the path she took. Regardless, when Rose wakes up, she is called by 664 and 665 for their next mission. Also, the episode actually changes the location they were staying in because in the light novel, they had stayed at the Shadow Garden base located in the Oriana Kingdom, whereas here, they stayed at Mary's Inn, which was located in First Castle Town, although it was interesting that Rose never encountered Cid, who was also staying here. And if you did not know, Mary was the same prostitute that Shadow had rescued from Goose back in episode 1. Anyways, the anime removed some minor exposition from Rose as well. For instance, she was amazed at the technological advancements of Shadow Garden, and even goes on to briefly explain how the numbers were organized, by having their strength and rank reflecting their assigned number. But if you're interested in learning more about Shadow Garden, feel free to check out this video where I explain the many aspects of the organization itself. Now to continue, Rose being frustrated about her abilities to save her people and kingdom, despite becoming stronger in Shadow Garden, was also removed from the episode. It would have been nice if they kept this because it provides some perspective on the mental state of Rose and how self-conscious she is about her own strength. That said, Rose and the team would meet with 559 at Fort first, but before their meeting, 664 will go on to explain how impressive 559 was, being able to defeat number 89 in battle considering the ranking disparity. But in the light novel, Rose was actually present when 559 was fighting 89, so having 664 explaining it to Rose just felt weird. But moving on, they will meet with 559 later that night, and most of their conversation along with 559 explaining the details of the upcoming mission pretty much followed the light novel. Also, what do you guys think of 559 or Victoria? I personally found her almost yandere-like and sadistic character to be quite interesting, although I did not like her behavior towards Rose. Let me know your own opinions on her in the comment section down below. In any case, when the mission started, a brief sequence where Rose internally reflecting how conceited she was in thinking that she could save her people, and realizing she was just another one of the grunts within Shadow Garden was removed from the anime. Again, this self-reflection would have provided such a better insight on the character's emotional and mental state if the episode kept this minor detail. But I digress. When it was revealed what was hidden within the ruins of Fort First, the anime keeping to their own aesthetic choices when it comes to things related to the cult, even having Rose outright acknowledging the altar and recognizing it as being similar to the sanctuary was a nice attention to detail. Now, there were also some changes made to Queen Reyna's arrival. There was mainly the detail that Shadow Garden had apparently informed Rose her family has been safely evacuated from the kingdom by the anti-Perth faction. That's why when Rose saw her mother, she was surprised and even started to question whether her mother was somehow captured by the Perth faction or did Shadow Garden lie to her. Unfortunately, Rose did not have the time to process the reveal because the cult retrieved a ring from the altar thanks to Queen Reyna, and the anime actually added the detail of the ring belonging to the human hero Freya, one of the 3 heroes that defeated the demon Diablos. Thus, Victoria orders them to engage the cult's forces, but both 664 and Rose objected for different reasons. 664 was worried because the enemies outnumbered them 10 to 1, while Rose feared for the safety of her mother, but Victoria simply ignores them and charges into battle. And the following battle was removed from the episode, like how Victoria had easily cut down 9 of the first children before attempting to kill Queen Reyna. Also, instead of Rose dragging her mother away just before the attack lands, in the episode Rose manages to block Victoria's attack, which was definitely more impressive. Another aspect that wasn't shown was how Rose and her mother would be tied up and then taken away by the cultists, while Victoria, 664 and 665 became surrounded by enemies, which we'll come back to later. For now, we cut to the Midgard Kingdom and we get an anime original sequence involving Gamma receiving a report from Nu about the progress of the team they sent to Fort First and the apparent betrayal of number 666. We even get a look at how Gamma decorates her room, and it seems that she really likes plushies. And some key details from this sequence was Gamma mentioning that Shadow Garden has been interfering with the cult's attempts to investigate and steal artifacts from ancient ruins. She also mentions that Mordred, the ninth seed of Rounds, has been secretly controlling the Oriana Kingdom from behind the scenes, and the attempts of forcing him out have failed. Additionally, it seems that Perth Asset has been expanding a large number of its forces to stop Shadow Garden from interfering, and with the growing unrest in the kingdom, security around the capital has greatly weakened, making it easier to infiltrate. Another detail was that Lambda has apparently been training more numbers for combat, so the anime might be hinting at the final confrontation between Shadow Garden and Mordred's forces. The last thing is how Gamma along with Shadow Garden were again assuming that everything, including Rose's betrayal, have been preordained by the Master Shadow. With that, we finally see what Cid has been doing on his journey of self-discovery, and apparently, he has been staying at Mary's Inn. It was also interesting how it seems to be reflecting on his Eminence in Shadow routine, even acknowledging that he never really had a clear image on what he wanted to do. This is probably the first time he has been so self-aware about his whole Shadow persona. Nevertheless, much of the interaction that Cid had with Mary was somewhat similar with the light novel, but the anime still made some creative changes. For example, it wasn't mentioned in the episode, but Cid did find Mary familiar, although he quickly dismisses the thought. Also, even though the anime made it seem like a coincidence that whatever Cid was thinking out loud fitted Mary's dialogue, but in the light novel, he did this intentionally to pretend that he was paying attention. In the following sequence, Cid starts to contemplate about his next routine, and the idea of factional disputes between two opposing forces fighting for power had intrigued him, so he decides to help make Rose into the new ruler. This basically followed the light novel, even the part where he misunderstood her intentions, thinking she wants to steal the throne for herself and become a tyrant. However, his planning was interrupted by soldiers, and much of what happened afterwards went accordingly to the light novel, although I have to commend Cid for his Oscar-worthy performance. And I found it crazy that Cid still showed admiration for the soldiers, thinking they were true nimbios like him, and even saying that he couldn't let them outdo him. Having said that, after Mary thanks Cid for protecting her, he would leave the inn and start his mission to make Rose into a tyrant, which was completely original to the anime. Although the two additional scenes of him going to jail and joining a volunteer army were actually taken from the web novel, and the reason this was added was because the director was a fan of the web novel. In any case, I won't be going into too much detail on what happened, so if you want to read more about these two storylines, I'll leave links to the web novel down below. Now for the prison storyline, Cid actually ended up in prison because when he was exploring the Oriana Kingdom, soldiers from the Perth Asset faction suspected that he was a spy and not wanting his mob cover blown. Cid willingly surrendered, and during his time inside the prison, he meets an individual named Zack, and he basically threatened Zack to always bring him meals, and it was actually shown in the episode. In addition to that, Cid would meet Clara Oriana in the web novel. The younger sister of Rose was actually the one that led the revolt inside the prison camp, but obviously in the episode, she doesn't exist, so the prison break likely happened in a different manner. That said, for the volunteer army storyline, Cid had joined because he thought it would be fun and they were offering rewards as well. But because the army was full of useless peasants, it turned out to be a complete disaster when they fought against the Perth faction like we see in the episode. Also regarding the legend Cid recreated, he essentially wanted to have the underdog suddenly defeat the enemy forces, so he decided to empower 3 middle-aged men with his magic. And remembering that the Black Rose was quite significant in the history of the Oriana Kingdom, he disguised his magic as black petals, which was why there was an image of a black rose on the right hand of the 3 men. But because this was apparently a new technique he developed, he underestimated the potential of his empowerment, and the 3 men decimated much of the Perth forces while taking all the credit. That's why Cid was complaining in the episode. Anyways, Cid contemplated about his next move, and he encountered the soldiers that stole from Mary again, but unlike the light novel where he confronted them immediately in the alleyway, this happened later because the prior mini storyline had occurred over the course of 2 to 3 days. Also, the way Cid killed the soldiers in the episode was more tame because in the light novel, he essentially ripped out their hearts, and his line of "the strongest guy is always right" was the same in both versions, and this is probably his most savage line yet. Additionally, another difference was the fact that Cid only went to Fort first in the episode because he heard there were treasures around the area, but in the light novel, he went there because he was intrigued about the idea of a fortress and ruins. Now in the anime, we see Cid delivering the gold coins he collected to Mary first before going to Fort first, but in the light novel, it happened afterwards. So when Mary finds the gold coins, she even catches a glimpse of Shadow, and knowing him, he was definitely waiting for her before swiftly leaving because he did say he wanted to do a better entrance and exit move than those soldiers. Also, the anime doesn't actually explain why Cid gave her the money, but the light novel did somewhat mention that he remembered he still had to pay for his apple juice, so that might be the reason. With that covered, we return to Fort First, and it was revealed that Victoria, 664 and 665 have been fighting the Chaos forces for 3 consecutive days and nights, although it seems that both 664 and 665 have already fallen. And this wasn't explicitly mentioned in the episode, but Victoria had managed to kill roughly 100 enemies, with Kagenou, the Gale Wind, being the only enemy left. However, she was also at her limit and she was easily knocked down by Kagenou, but before he kills her, Shadow arriving to save her happened in a somewhat different manner from the light novel. To explain, Shadow would heal Victoria completely, even regenerating her left arm, which allowed her to swiftly slice everything from Kagenou's ankle down to ribbons. And fearing for his life, they tried to escape, but unlike in the light novel where he was killed by Shadow, Victoria was the one that killed Kagenou in the episode. Also, Shadow in the light novel would mention that he healed 664 and 665 as well, because he saw them hanging out with Rose, which means that he probably knows that Rose is in Shadow Garden. Having said that, Shadow will arrive to meet with Victoria, but the anime actually left out a lot of details regarding this interaction. For starters, the episode removed the part where Cid recalls his first meeting with Victoria and how he found her a year ago during his usual cross-country adventures. Because Victoria had demon possession, Cid decided to kill her and leave her with Alpha. Furthermore, Cid describing his initial impressions on her was removed as well, because Victoria apparently used to be quite a timid girl, and seeing her fight here really surprised him. Another aspect removed from the episode was Cid thinking that Victoria has done something illegal, and because she was embarrassed of admitting this, he assumed her story about the Cult of Diablos was just a cover-up. Then Victoria would go on to explain the situation to Shadow, but in the light novel, she was behaving in a cuter manner, tugging on his coat, which apparently she used to do this all the time whenever she wanted to tell him something. And regarding her report, it followed much of the light novel, although the anime had more emphasis on the animosity between Victoria and 664 when they were talking about Rose's betrayal. I also found it funny that Shadow basically assumed this was all the corporate issues of Mitsugoshi, and he said that he was tired of this routine. Now besides that, Shadow's theory was actually more exaggerated in the anime, and it was funny how Victoria, 664 and 665 assumed that it was towards the betrayal of Rose, but in reality, he was simply frustrated that after giving Rose all that power and seeing her kill her father, she was giving up on everything and that it will ruin his Eminence in Shadow routine. Again, if this is an indication of how crazy Cid is, then I don't know what is, because his priority was his routine, not the fact that Rose was being forced to marry Perv again. But yeah, that was my breakdown on episode 9, and I'm definitely looking forward to future episodes because this was just a prelude for what's to come, although it would have been nice if the anime focused more on Rose like the light novel. Nonetheless, the introduction of Victoria was done quite well, even if some details on the character were removed, but hopefully we'll see more of her in the future. So what are your thoughts on the episode? Did you like it, or do you also think they could have done better? Feel free to leave your answers in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this episode breakdown and cut content video, don't forget to leave a like or subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button as well for more content like this in the future. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe everyone.